let's go with OpTic because we talked about them so much on the last episode. If you want to go back and listen to the conversation before, it was all confirmed. But Huke replaces PRED in the OpTic Texas lineup for this week's CDL matches. Presumably for the foreseeable future. So the reports or rumors, I forget who said it, was that PRED, I believe is the marksman from the Dope Check podcast. He said that PRED went back to Australia. So that would, presumably, obviously, we don't have CDL matches for a while anyway, so it wouldn't necessarily mean that he's gone when they get back. But it does seem like there might be some kind of separation here where Huke is the replacement going forward. But regardless, they play 2 matches this week. OpTic did with Huke in the lineup, and they go 2-0. They beat Vancouver in their first matchup 3-1. A pretty close series. Vancouver wins the first hard point, and then OpTic really bounces back and kind of controls the rest of the way. The second series was definitely much closer. They go to a game 5 with Gorilla's mate. They nearly get reverse swept. Huke drops 10 in the game 5. And he said after the game 5 in the post-match interview, he said, "I knew I was going to be able to be the big ice if I needed to." So the confidence is definitely there for Huke. OpTic looked pretty good, especially with all of the circumstances. I think this was about as great as they could look for, kind of all coming together in a week or so. What did you make of their 2 matches this week, OpTic Texas?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what we were talking about pretty extensively in the week leading up to this whole set of matches, but with the PRED and whatever rumors going on. We both were kind of, I think, on the same page that it felt like a pretty seamless, or we were expecting it to be a pretty seamless transition from PRED to Huke. We talked about the chemistry the guys on the OpTic had with Huke in terms of previously playing with him on previous teams. And just like the play style similarities between Huke and PRED, and it's kind of like what we saw here. It's, didn't necessarily take on, uh, a team like LAT or some of the world beaters, quote unquote, you would say for, the contenders in the league and whatnot. But they had a couple close matches here. We saw a bunch of matches across the league really that have been close. But for this in particular, the one thing I know we talked about was how would their S&D be affected by bringing in a new player on short notice and stuff. And I believe they went 3-0 in search with a Huke. So that's a good early sign there for a new team. Obviously, again, like we kind of mentioned, they have experience playing together previously, so I don't think it is shocking that they would seemingly pick back up where they left off and know each other's tendencies and whatnot. And it's early in a game, so it's not like they had to reinvent the wheel in terms of all their practice and everything going on. So yeah, I think that's probably where the thing that jumped out to me the most was the search and destroy looking good. We obviously historically on the podcast talked about some previous OpTic teams being known for being respawn teams and whatnot. And again, early in this Black Ops 6 season, small sample size, yada yada. But it's still good to see a team fresh off an emergency roster change, performing well in search, especially for someone like me, who is just a big search guy. So that definitely stood out to me. And yeah, I think OpTic is, I still think we talk about it on a bunch of other episodes about how the Green Wall expects, you ain't first, you're last. You expects them to win every game. So I think even despite all the PRED stuff going on before Huke joins, I still think the Green Wall is expecting 2 wins this weekend. But for them to actually deliver and take advantage of that's not how I wanted to say it, but for them to just deliver and show up and get the job done, that's definitely encouraging for Greenwall supporters.
Yeah, the S&D stuff was the thing I was concerned most about, and that's why when we talked about the pick'em, I picked Vancouver over OpTic because the first match with Huke, I wasn't entirely sure how it would go, in particular with Search and OpTic. I wouldn't say hit or miss with respawn, because I think that is kind of overblowing it, but it really only takes losing one of those respawns, and if you're really shaky in search, it could be a 2-3-5 kind of situation where the Surge win. It wasn't that though. OpTic, they lose that opening hard point. It was a 250-227 on a red card, and then they come back on red card S&D and they win 6-1. And I think what the most impressive thing is with this OpTic team this past week was that they won all 3 of their S&Ds on different maps. The first red card, then they went on Vault, and then they went on Protocol. So they showed that they can do it on a variety of maps, not just spamming 1 or 2 maps over and over and over again. So I think I was very impressed by OpTic. I think it gave me a lot of confidence for their team moving forward. Granted, like you kind of mentioned, they didn't play the toughest teams in the world, but they also didn't play, Vegas, for example. So I think they played some of the mid to bottom half teams, the guys that are floating around 6-12 at this point. But you got to play who you play, and they beat them. They went to a game 5. They didn't let it get to them that they were on the verge of being reverse swept, and they buckled down. They won Protocol S&D pretty convincingly 6-3, and honestly, that's as best as you can ask for. Again, with the circumstances that they were under, like this is a surprise roster change from everything that has been reported and been talked about. So it's not like, this was, we got to get rid of PRED because he's just so bad at this or that. Like it was, they had to do this, and it seems like Huke was about as perfect of a replacement, or at least in this potential or this specific spot. I think he was about as perfect as you could get. So congrats to them. Congrats to the Green Wall that people aren't kind of dooming and glooming after week 2 of the CDL season. But I think they're in a really good spot as they get in to holiday break.